Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us on KREM 2 News First at 4. I'm Tom Sherry.
And I'm Whitney Ward. We begin tonight as the coronavirus death toll is on the rise in Washington. 9 people have died now, and a total of 27 in King and Snohomish counties have now tested positive for coronavirus. Harborview Medical Center in Seattle says one victim who died last week has also now tested positive for that virus. The victim was a resident at a nursing home in Kirkland, which is the center of the recent outbreak here in Washington. Harborview leaders say that victim did have underlying health issues and died last Wednesday, 2 days before the first reported death in the state. As a result, some staff there may have been exposed to the virus while working in the intensive care unit. Those staff members are now undergoing daily screenings.
As of right now, no one in Idaho has been diagnosed with coronavirus, and the Idaho Department of Health says the risk is currently low. 6 people are currently being monitored for the virus. Only 3 people in Idaho have been tested for coronavirus, also known as COVID-19. Idaho Governor Brad Little posted a brief video on Twitter Monday stating that Idaho is carefully and closely monitoring the novel coronavirus.
Now, Spokane Public Schools says right now they're not planning to bring in additional janitors in response to this coronavirus scare. Last year, budget cuts reduced custodial staff, leaving some to worry if the virus could spread.
KREM 2's Brandon Jones explains how the district plans to operate around these kinds of situations with fewer staff moving forward.
Last summer, Spokane Public Schools suffered from a $31 million budget deficit before they were able to make some adjustments and save hundreds of jobs. Unfortunately, there were still some layoffs, and a few of those were custodians. Over the last few days, SPS has sent out updates on how they're handling the coronavirus. Right now, each school is operating off of the custodians that were on staff at the beginning of the fiscal year. That's made up of 1 janitor at each school who handles dayside cleaning and 22 roaming custodians that serve as backups and step in during an absence. The reduction in staff has forced schools to improvise in certain situations. According to SPS, they're prioritizing the disinfection of high-touch areas and have had extra cleaning supplies available for individual classrooms to wipe down surfaces. Cleaning of the floors have been limited to twice a week, but the schools did say they're working to keep all cleaning materials in full stock. There's no immediate plans to bring in extra staffing for the coronavirus, although they'll continue to monitor the situation. From Spokane, Brandon Jones, KREM 2 News.
Grant County health leaders are now testing 2 patients for COVID-19. Leaders say they were notified Sunday about the first possible case. Several Grant County health workers involved in the care of the patient being treated for possible COVID-19 have been put into quarantine as a precaution.
And on that note, we do want to mention quarantine is different from isolation. So quarantine means separating a person or people who have been exposed to a contagious disease, but they haven't developed symptoms from others who have also been exposed. That's in order to prevent the possible spread of that disease, while isolation is used to separate the sick people from the healthy people.
And 12 firefighters and police officers in Kirkland are showing flu-like symptoms today, and they are quarantined after potential or direct exposure to coronavirus at a nursing home. City leaders say 19 of those first responders had direct exposure to the patients who then tested positive for the disease. So far, at least 5 patients at the nursing home have died, while more remain sick.
And the University of Washington team is now crowdsourcing for the source of potential treatments for novel coronavirus. It's a computer game called Fold It. It's all about folding proteins. Users basically tweak and modify renderings of proteins, which is an incredibly complex 3-dimensional puzzle. Their research has to do with the way this rapidly spreading coronavirus behaves in the human body. And once the virus is introduced, proteins on the surface bind to other proteins on human cells. And when they connect, it infects you and can replicate.
So this could be something that you could administer that would slow down or halt infection of coronavirus.
So in 2014, they also worked on Ebola. There are thousands and thousands of registered users and hundreds of users who are incredibly active. Organizers are excited to see what they can come up with before their review coming up on Friday.
Interesting.
It is interesting. Hey, if it leads to something, why not?
You bet.
Well, while the Centers for Disease Control handled this nationwide coronavirus outbreak, there's a recent military memo that shows the CDC has limited applicability for the military because CDC guidance doesn't apply to sovereign nations.
My number one priority remains to protect our forces and their families. Second, to safeguard our mission capabilities. And third, to support the interagency whole-of-government approach.
To date, 4 people stationed at Camp Carroll, South Korea, have the coronavirus. One is a spouse, and she was sent back to the United States for quarantine. No military mission is compromised. The Department of Defense would execute widespread aid should the World Health Organization declare the coronavirus a pandemic. It has not done that. Military labs in South Korea and in the United States are working on a vaccine. And we reached out to the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs about their response efforts. A VA spokesman wrote in part, VA is monitoring the situation through its Emergency Management Coordination Cell and collaborating with public health officials from HHS and the Centers for Disease Control, all to ensure that veterans benefit from the latest prevention, testing, and treatment protocols and develop emergency management plans for medical centers.
Meanwhile, MultiCare is soon going to be offering free e-visits to anyone who has COVID-19 symptoms, which could include a fever, a cough, or even just difficulty breathing. And that's whether or not the patient has traveled out of the country. Patients can use the promo code COVID-19 to waive the $25 fee. MultiCare says anyone experiencing severe breathing problems or other serious health issues that may be related to COVID-19 should go to the nearest emergency department.
And with all of this news, we know that many folks are concerned about the coronavirus and that all the information can be overwhelming. So we are working right now on a virtual town hall that will allow people to ask questions of local health professionals. We're trying to provide facts and put your fear and concerns into perspective. Knowledge is power. Text us at 509-448-2000 because we want to hear and answer your questions.
And remember, you can always get the latest information on our website. Just go to KREM.com. In other big news today, the murder trial against a North Idaho woman accused of killing her husband could last over a month. Prosecutors say in court today while Lori Eisenberg appeared before a judge.
But when it came time to enter a murder charge, a plea for a murder charge, she stayed silent. KREM 2's Taylor Vito was in court. He joins us live with the latest.
Well, yeah, Lori Eisenberg's case is heading towards a jury trial. When that will happen, though, isn't entirely clear at this point. Now, as you mentioned, she pleaded not guilty today, but only due to a technicality. Now, we do have some video to show you from just a couple of hours ago from court here in Coeur d'Alene. A judge didn't allow us to take video once her hearing started. You'll recall that Eisenberg is accused of killing her husband 2 years ago on Lake Coeur d'Alene. Authorities would eventually find a lethal amount of Benadryl in his system, and court documents accuse Lori of creating a situation where he died in the lake. Lori at the time was the director of a nonprofit that helped low-income families find homes. She was eventually found guilty of embezzling money from the nonprofit and is currently serving out a federal prison sentence on that charge. Now, as for the murder charges against her, Lori opted to stay silent when asked to enter a plea this afternoon. A judge then entered a non-guilty plea on her behalf, which we should note is common in cases like this. Prosecutors said they expect a jury trial to last up to 6 weeks. That is a new development. We know that several witnesses involved with the case testified before a grand jury last month. If found, in January, I should say, If found guilty, Lori could face the death penalty or life in prison. Now, at least one family member of her husband, Larry Eisenberg, was in court this afternoon. He declined to comment on the case, though. Live outside Kootenai County Court, Taylor Vito, KREM 2 News.
Lori Vallow, the mother of 2 missing Rexburg children, is scheduled to appear in Madison County Courthouse at 2 o'clock Friday. The Madison County Sheriff's Office confirmed to our Boise sister station that Vallow is now in transit from Hawaii to Idaho for that court appearance. Vallow is charged with 2 felony counts of desertion and non-support of dependent children. She was also arrested on misdemeanor charges of resisting or obstructing officers, criminal solicitation to commit a crime, and contempt of court.
All right, Tom, we were out there today marveling at the sunshine, loving the blue skies, but it was kind of windy today, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's going to remain windy tonight and windy again tomorrow. Let's go over here. Beautiful day, as Whitney was just talking about. 53 degrees, that's the current temperature. By the way, this is a live look up towards Silver Mountain, so blue sky and great skiing going on up on the mountain. But the wind, as Whitney referenced, out of the south-southwest right now, 26 miles per hour. It's going to continue tonight, also again tomorrow. Take a look at the latest Doppler radar. dry east of the Cascades, but we've got some rain over on the west side of the state with some snow falling at the higher elevations. Your day planner forecast calling for mostly cloudy skies this evening. Windy. We'll see an overnight low of 35 degrees. Winds will be out of the southwest, gusting up to about 30 miles per hour. Should get up to about 50 tomorrow, so I'm still going to call that mild. The average high this time of year is into the mid-50s. Cools down for the weekend. Could get really wet. Friday night into Saturday, also windy. Mostly rain for us in Spokane, but could see some wet snow early on, late at night and early on in the morning hours. But the mountains are going to be picking up snow. And then a cold morning on Sunday, down to 26 degrees. Then we'll see a daytime high of 46 on your Sunday. We'll take a look at your 7-day forecast coming up in just a few minutes.
Sounds good, Tom. Thank you. Leaders at Planned Parenthood and protesting churches are now reacting to a new law from Spokane City Council.
Yeah, the law places limits on noise levels outside the building. KREM 2's Shayna Waldtower brings us more on each group's response following last night's council meeting.
Yeah, this new law states that noise should not be able to disturb patients or staff inside of this building here. Otherwise, that could result in warnings or arrests from police or lawsuits from those inside of this building. Previous Washington state law says it's illegal to disturb the peace outside of a healthcare facility. This new law emphasizes that, specifying what exactly counts as a disturbance. If the mayor approves it, police could get involved if noise levels rise to more than 62 decibels from at least 100 feet away.
This is a major victory for patients in Spokane.
Leaders at Planned Parenthood say there are protests outside of their building at least once a month. The church at Planned Parenthood regularly invites their congregation out for a worship service, speaking against some of the organization's procedures.
This is bringing awareness to the plight of the unborn, who we believe are the same as a 5-year-old.
When staff at Planned Parenthood started the legal process last summer, Pastor Ken Peters says,
I knew there was going to be a battle ahead.
After months of discussions between City Council and Parenthood staff, the council voted 6-1 to approve the policy.
It allows them to access their health care without interference.
It's what staff say will address an ongoing issue.
Going to see your health care provider and not being able to hear what they're saying. That should not be allowed, and that's a criminal behavior.
But the church believes their message, not the noise, is what's prompting this response.
And so we really feel like they just don't like us there. It's not that we're disrupting, so we feel unfairly treated.
Peter says they don't plan on stopping their protests, but will obey officers' orders if their service gets a bit too loud.
We just keep plodding on, and we're going to keep on singing, and we're going to keep on praying.
The policy now goes to the mayor for her final decision that would give police the authority to enforce the law. In Spokane, Shayna Waldtower, KREM 2 News.
Now, I did reach out to the mayor's office this afternoon. I'm told she does plan to sign that ordinance. I also reached out to Jake Eakin, one of the main protesters who helped launch the church at Planned Parenthood. He told me this new ordinance could actually make it better for protesters because he says the old one was arbitrary and often left up to police. He also says this new law will not stop or hinder their protests outside of Planned Parenthood.